Good evening, Des Moines. Welcome to the Doc and Lefty program here at the always verdant Webcast1Live.com studios in the plush, adorned accoutrement of the downtown skywalk above the always delicious Burger King. This is Lefty coming at you with program tonight. Once again, you know, I'm going, if one time is a fluke, two times is a bigger fluke, I guess, and three times is a trend, I'm going to have to start getting on Doc for being here more often because I am flying solo. And for folks that catch the shows when I am here by myself, you know that it's always a socialist love fest, or I've got some of my hippie music friends in the crowd, or we're talking Southside City planning. But tonight we have a very special guest who is none of those things, and in fact probably is going to lend some much needed credibility to the program, and we do really appreciate having him here. Our guest tonight is District 22 Senator, my old senator. I just moved from West Des Moines, and he's District 22. That's got all of Windsor Heights, a little bit of Clive, a lot of West Des Moines, all of Waukee, and some of even further west of Waukee. Charles Schneider, Senator, thank you so much for coming in. We really appreciate having you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Blake. I appreciate it.
The pleasure is all mine. And you know, if we keep getting these Republican senators here on the show, we've got and representatives. We got super friend of the show Brad Zahn, super friend of the show Tom Shaw, and now Senator Charles Schneider. We're going to have a regular murderer's row. Actually, I don't want to use the word murderer in conjunction with my own state senator. We're going to have a really good batting cage lineup of Republican senators. And, you know, we don't have a lot of Democratic congresspeople on the program, mainly because I don't know very many of them. But I reached out to the senator. He was good enough to come down on very short notice, and that was impressive to me because I think I sent you a message, last week? It was
late last week, maybe Thursday or Friday.
My partner told me he wasn't going to be here, and I reached out to you, and I'd met you briefly at a CLE. It was a CLE. It was Bridging the Gap for the Wild Eases. And another thing that Doc hates is when you got two lawyers or more in the studio at the same time. As everybody knows, I'm an attorney. Senator Schneider is also an attorney. I believe you're a counsel at principal. Is that correct?
Yep.
And you were in private practice before that, though.
I was. I had been with the Dickinson law firm for about 5 years before going to principal.
Sure. Now, before we get into too much of the meat and potatoes of the show, because I got a few thoughts I want to share with you tonight, and I have a few questions I want to ask you. Why don't you tell folks who now this is worldwide. We've got listeners all over the globe, and that's not a lie, folks. We do appreciate you tuning in. But why don't you tell some of the folks out there that aren't from the Clive, Windsor Heights, West Des Moines area who you are, a little bit about you, and kind of what your politics are in the Iowa Senate.
Sure. My name again is Charles Schneider. I'm an Iowa native. I've lived in Muscatine, Clive, Newton, Iowa, where my parents still live, and Richmond, Virginia, as I was growing up. I went to college at Creighton University and went on. Yeah. They're tearing up the Big East this year, though.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
they're unbelievable.
I don't know if you saw that Nova game.
I was at Buffalo Wild Wings and caught just a few minutes of it, but they are crazy good. Crazy good. My beloved Iowa Hawkeyes. I'm
an Iowa fan too.
Yeah, they're fantastic. It's good to have Iowa basketball and Iowa State. You know, man, I can't say much good about Iowa State. I'm sorry, Iowa State folks, but it's good to have two really good basketball teams on top. Two Division I teams on top again. But I'm sorry. You went to school at Creighton?
And then Iowa I did the joint degree JD MBA program there, so I was there for 4 years. Mm-hmm. And then I had known that I wanted to come back to the Des Moines area and settle down and build a career and a family once I graduated from law school and got into my profession. So we moved out to West Des Moines in 2002, and we've lived out there ever since.
Which neighborhood in West Des Moines? You don't have to give your address. Although I think your address you can find it. It's Googleable, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
We were over by 60th and EP True. So 60th Street is the boundary between Polk and Dallas counties.
That's right.
And I was actually the first Dallas County city councilman for West Des Moines.
Oh, sure. Well, that's pretty cool.
A little bit of trivia for you.
Well, no, I'll file that away because you got to shake things up with those Valley guys every once in a while, right? Those old school West Des Moines folks. Well, so describe some of the district for me because like I said in the lead in, we've got All of Windsor Heights, I believe, is in your
Yep,
district.
all of Windsor Heights, all of Clive, all of Waukee, and all of West Des Moines that's in Dallas County, and a sizable portion of it in Polk County.
I believe you got everything north. I was looking at the map earlier, and you've got everything north of Vine Street.
Yep.
And then kind of that, and then it sort of follows kind of a curved linear path right around the railroad tracks.
Yeah.
So so you have nothing in the railroad area, basically.
No, nothing down
in the Raccoon River area.
Yeah, Valley
Sure.
Junction or,
Right.
or south of the Raccoon River. Nothing in that area.
So, but still, Waukee, Clive, and you got all of Waukee, and Waukee is growing. Waukee and Adel are going to become one town here. I would think in the next, and that's
They
13
may already,
miles.
they may already even abut one another in some places.
It's unbelievable how much, and because I grew up in Northwest Iowa, and I remember, my first paying paycheck job was at the Fairway, and I remember a guy left Lamar's up in Northwest Iowa in Plymouth County to move to the Waukee store, which had just opened, and thinking, what is that? Does that exist? Is that a town? And then I've lived over in that area, and it's just unbelievable. Even in the last 2 years, how much it's grown. And I think we'll call it a testament to your leadership in the Waukee West Des Moines area.
Oh, that would be I wish I could take that credit.
Well, let me ask you this. Now you have a fairly sizable district, and I got to say, from Western Waukee to Windsor Heights, that's a pretty diverse group of people.
It is.
And so, what was your? But you came in a special election, I believe, and for the late Pat Ward,
right,
who tragically passed away, lost her battle with breast cancer, which just really ran a really hard campaign, was beating, I think, Desmond Adams pretty handily, and then just kind of was not able to pull through, and we certainly were sad to hear about that. But then you came in and had a special election, and what was your strategy for dealing with such a diverse district? Because a lot of what Doc always says is that everything in West Urbandale is pretty right wing, but you got a lot of area in Clive, a lot of young people in Clive, a lot of younger people in the Windsor Heights area. We tend to think youth trends Democratic. How were you able to bridge some of those gaps?
Well, I just talked about what I had done on the West Des Moines City Council and what I thought I would bring to the table in the state Senate. So I focused on the fact that I'm a fiscal conservative, and I was able to demonstrate that when I was on the West Des Moines City Council, we kept the property tax levy flat through the recession. And I believe in limited government, and I talked about some of the things that I had done in that arena, and I just focused on those issues. Really, I had a past or a track record to point to, which I think helped me make my case to the voters in a very short period of time.
Yeah, you didn't have much time to prepare. And we'll talk about some of those particular issues and some of your own particular political leanings right after this break. Please stick with us. We've got Senator Schneider for the entire hour. He was good enough to, he might not have known that, but he was good enough to...
a whole hour? This show's an hour?
The whole hour. That's right. That's right. Yeah. So unless you got to be somewhere,
no,
and then I'll riff for the last 30 minutes or 45 or whatever we have before. So we're lucky to have him in any capacity he's willing to be here, but we will be right back after these messages. This is webcast1live.com.
Petrosh & Associates, how can I help you?
Petrosh & Associates will provide you with a friendly, caring, and confidential place to find help for mental health concerns. We are ready for your call. Our doctor, Dr. J. Patrick Petrosh, provides a full range of psychiatric services for children, adolescents, and adults in a forthright and informative manner while maintaining a casual, comfortable, and relaxed atmosphere.
All across America, there are countless numbers of people struggling with addiction and other life-controlling issues. Probably someone you know and love. There is a way out. There is hope. Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida, has a unique approach to substance abuse treatment. Call now and ask about our Guaranteed Success program or log on to transformationstreatment.com. Transformations. Change your life. Change your relationships. Transform your world.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast 1 Live.
Yeah. Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for sticking around for the first segment. We got a lot to talk about tonight, and we're going to get to several different things. And Senator, if you're game, I'd love to talk national politics with you after a little bit. We've got the State of the Union address tonight, and I have some thoughts that I want to share with you and see what your reactions are to those. But so we were talking a little bit about your political message of fiscal conservatism, which, you know, as I'll give you a little bit of grief as a Democrat, as the token sort of lefty kind of voice, the fiscal conservative sort of moniker coming from a Republican over these, especially these last 10 years, is it makes me chuckle a little bit, because I think nationally the Republicans have a well-deserved reputation for running up big deficits, similarly to some Democrats of note from the past. And I think in the Iowa Republicans, even though the Iowa legislature, maybe you want to disagree with me on this, the Iowa legislature does not have really the national or even statewide reputation of being a big deficit kind of institution. Boy, you had the governor giving away a lot of money to Facebook, or not necessarily Facebook. I won't get into that, right? But a lot of money to the fertilizer plant in Southeast Iowa, giving a lot of money in tax credits to Google out in Western Iowa, and I know that tax credits for businesses are a way to get some cachet in the state. But just talk about, do you think that those things track with fiscal conservatism as you understand it?
As I understand it, what I tell people is that the most important thing is balancing the state's budget.
Okay.
And we have to remember, we came from a situation just 3 years ago where we had a $900,000 or $1 million deficit in state government. And in the last 3 years, under Governor Branstad's leadership and with the work of the Iowa House, and let's give the Iowa Senate some credit where credit's due, they've come together and have put our state back together in solid financial footing. So if, to your example about tax credits, if a program like that can be administered in a way that keeps us within our budget priorities, then I think it's helpful to use as a tool to recruit businesses here.
Sure. Now, and I understand that point completely. And, you know, we do like to be fair on this show. We do like to give credit where credit is due. You'll never hear me really kind of praising Governor Branstad, but I think that Culver certainly got a lot of the short end of the global financial crisis at the end of his term, although I was never a big supporter of Chet Culver's either, truth be told, for a lot of different reasons that are very, very apparent now 4 years later. But no, that it's unarguable that we have a surplus now. We have a budget surplus now for the first time in a while. We are a state that has I believe, a balanced budget clause in the Constitution. We have to keep a balanced budget, and we do. There are different accounting tricks that I know that the folks in the State House do to kind of make that happen year in and year out. But specifically, how has the 2-year budget process? Now that you've been in the Senate for 2 years now, you don't have to, or do you have to run sooner?
I don't have to run until 16.
Okay, because you were elected in a special election, but it was in 2012, so you get to serve out the full 4 years. Okay, right. So you've been there for 2 years. You got a pretty good handle on this budget process now. But you weren't there for when it was year to year to year. Mm-hmm. And so I know that Branstad's 2-year budget program was really kind of something he really pushed hard to bring some stability to the budget. Do you think that's been working well? Do you think that maybe more flexibility is necessary? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it has worked well. And I think they do keep some flexibility in the process. What they actually do is they'll budget for 150% mm-hmm. of a department's budget over a 2-year period. So what we're talking about in this current fiscal year is about 50% of any particular department's budget for the remaining portion of the next fiscal year. Mm-hmm. So I think that leaves enough flexibility to make adjustments where adjustments can be made. And I think it also helps us manage spending better, because most of the cases for programs have to be made not on an annual basis, but on a biannual basis now.
Sure.
So there is less room for new programs to be proposed and funded.
So that makes sense. one of the big, you talk about spending, one of the biggest fights that it seems that the House and the Senate have is between the parties every single year, now probably every 2 years, is allowable growth, and what percentage that's going to be. I think that you guys settled on 4%. Was it 4% last year? I can't remember.
It was 2 or 4. I don't remember the exact percentage.
It wasn't. I remember I kind of remember it was like 0 and 6 or something, and then it was whittled down.
Yeah.
And so maybe if somebody wants to call in at 855-244-0077 and give me that particular number, that would be good. But so that's locked in for this session too, correct?
Well, yeah, for this upcoming fiscal year,
right.
That's taken care of. From what I can recollect, and I'm not on the Education Appropriations Budget Subcommittee, so that's why I'm not completely up to speed on that particular budget item.
Sure. So it hasn't always been easy, though, to get budgets taken care of over the last, and it's been fairly recently. We've got divided government. We've had divided government for a while. We have low unemployment in the state relative to the country. We have a fiscal situation where we're seeing growth in sorts of the right areas, as much as myself and my fellow liberals like to bash the Facebook deal or the Google deal. 15 jobs for this much money. These things seem to be working apace. They don't seem to be blowing things up here in Iowa, but they do seem to be moving in the right direction. What's it like in working in divided government? Because you've been in divided government your entire career so far in the Senate, and not only that, but you're in the minority as well. What can you speak to some of that?
I've actually had a good experience. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to advance every single issue that I want to take care of because I don't set the agenda as a member of the minority. But I'm the ranking member on the Judiciary Committee, which just means I'm the highest ranking minority member.
Sure.
And I've got a very good working relationship with the chair of that committee, Senator Rob Hogue from Cedar Rapids. And what I've focused my time on doing is just working collaboratively on issues that I know I can provide some help in advancing nonpartisan issues. So I'm still able to, I think, be effective in representing my constituents, even though I'm not able to necessarily set the agenda.
Sure. You have great segues. If you wanted to be sit in my seat over here and run this show, that would be fantastic, because I think you're doing a better job of it than me. We come up to another break. We'll be right back. We're going to talk a little bit about your legislative agenda in the next segment. We're here with Senator Charles Schneider, and we certainly do appreciate you taking the break right before the State of the Union address, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later as well. So stick around. We've got a lot to cover. We've got very little time to do it, but this is Doc and Lefty. This is Lefty with Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com. We'll be right back.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast 1 Live.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit! You're our hero!
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for listening. Hey, Doc, if you're out there, you know the phone number. Call in. I thought you said, buddy, that you're gonna make yourself available, but we've got Senator Charles Schneider from District 22 with us all evening. He's my former senator, and which is one of the ways that I got to meet him and got to speak with him. And that is the great thing about the Iowa legislature is that you guys make yourselves available, and we do appreciate that as constituents. I think you are in that West Des Moines, at least where I was living, in that West Des Moines duo of Taylor and Schneider. Rob Taylor was my rep. I lived tucked in behind that new development, right behind the country club.
Oh, sure.
And so that, I don't know, you guys have some overlap. I don't think that you obviously aren't mirrors of each other as far as the territory you cover, but I know that he's got a lot of things going on. I know that you've got a lot of things going on. You just declined, or I think there's some scuttlebutt about you running for Latham's seat, and you declined to do that back in September, I believe.
Yeah. Well, actually, just a few weeks ago.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought
right.
I saw a story from the fall about, or maybe you had been approached and you were thinking about it. Maybe I misread it.
Well, I started thinking about it when Latham decided he
Right.
wasn't going to seek re-election to that seat, and I can't remember exactly when I think it was toward the end of December. It was toward the end of December that he announced that formally, and I put some thought to it. But I was having a tough time making a decision, and I finally came to the realization that the reason why I was having a hard time making a decision is because I wasn't really passionate about going out to D.C. for a couple reasons. First is I just got elected to the state Senate. There are some things I would like to help get accomplished here. And secondly, there's just so much bickering going on in D.C. right now. It's hard to get anything done. I'd be one of 435 people, and I'd feel like I was just beating my head against the wall sometimes.
Well, so take that as a lesson, candidates who have already announced for the seat, and we'll talk about super friend of the show Brad Zahn, who announced today that you heard it here. The news media doesn't lie. It's not a very fun place right now. But so talk a little bit about some of the work that you've been doing and some of the legislation, especially this session, that you've introduced. I know that it's short. It's been 4 weeks, but you've introduced some stuff. You're telling me over the break. What is your agenda for this year? And you got 2 more years left in your term. What is your sort of broad Schneider vision for the Iowa State Senate, for the state going forward?
Well, I'd like to see us make sure that we maintain our path on toward fiscal responsibility. That's got to continue. It's not something that you can get done 1 year or accomplish 1 year and say that's good. It's something you have to continually work at. And priorities will change too. So spending levels for different things will have to be changed over time. But 2 of the big things I'd really like to get done from a macro level during my time in the Senate is take a look at our state income tax structure and move away from taxing income and productivity and move more toward taxing consumption. I don't know exactly how we get there. It's a complicated issue. It's nothing that I think one person can do on their own. It'll require a group effort, but it's the way that a lot of states are moving right now, a lot of the states that are really seeing a lot of growth economically, and it's something that we need to take a serious look at.
And it's a really interesting coincidence that you brought that up, because my partner and I were talking about that exact issue at the office today. And Doc, I'll have to talk to him about it, but he and I have had several, because you're basically a VAT or a modified VAT, a value-added tax is kind of what you're suggesting, a consumption tax. It's kind of sort of how it's put out there, correct?
Well, I need to have a better idea of what that looks like too. So I'm not exactly sure. When people say consumption, I don't know if they mean more toward like a European style VAT tax,
right,
or if they mean a sales tax, or which of those directions we need to go, or what combination.
And that's perfectly fair. That's an absolutely fair distinction to make, because there are a lot of different models. And I know that when Doc and I talk about this between ourselves, he's very against any sort of national sales tax or VAT. He considers them regressive. And the discussion I was having with my partner was, he seemed to think that it's a very conservative idea, like you said. Keep a hold of income, keep a hold of productivity, make sure that people can, and then go out and buy the things they want to buy. But I hear a lot from conservative friends of mine that it's a way for the government to keep picking winners and losers, and they don't like to see that, because essentially if the government has a national sales tax and it's not flat across the board, the government could say, all right, we're not going to tax lettuce or cucumbers or bread, but we are going to tax fruit roll-ups. We are going to tax macaroni and cheese. All the things that are not as healthful. which could limit choice. Now, in my opinion, that's a perfectly reasonable function for government to have. I think consumption is a horrible overconsumption, I should say, is a horrible problem in this country. I think we buy too much stuff. I think we buy too much stuff we don't need, and it makes for a really larded down kind of system system that we have. And a VAT could totally cure some of that. But speak to some of those issues. Is it regressive, or actually, I'll back up. How closely have you studied it?
I haven't studied it all that
Okay, so
closely,
maybe I'm getting too deep into it.
Yeah,
for this
I haven't dug myself into the weeds too much on that. What I do know, though, is that we've got the third highest marginal tax level in the United States. And granted, we've got federal deductibility, but when you look at the different charts that different organizations put out there comparing tax rates, they never take into account federal deductibility, and it can be confusing to people. Right. So we ought to make it more simple. We ought to make it a lot more competitive than it really is. So what we move to, you still have to fund government. I mean, there needs to be some basic structure of law and order, and basic services need to be provided that private entities wouldn't provide on their own. So we know those have to be funded, and exactly how we get to that point, I don't know off the top of my head, but I think we can get there. Other states have. Right. And
Des Moines, wealthiest city in the country. I mean, we must be doing something right as it is, right? I mean, we got a lot of money relative to cost of living, so maybe the system isn't too bad, but I gotta say, I like the idea of some kind of consumption tax, and so you heard it here. You got a liberal and a conservative tentatively agreeing on something. Although maybe when the details are worked out, we can be at each other's throats. Well, here we are. It's we breezed through the first half hour, and we will coming up on another break. So stick around, and we will be talking more specifically about Senator Schneider's legislative agenda for this year, and maybe some national politics. So be right back with Webcast1Live.com.
Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places, especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart, and it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We're here with Senator Charles Schneider from the fabulous District 22 here in the wonderful state of Iowa. And we're talking Windsor Heights, we're talking Clive, we're talking West Des Moines, where I've made my home for a long time, and some of the best restaurants are in that area. I know that we've got now. Well, you don't have Beaverdale. Beaverdale's a great place too. It's a little too far east of where you are. But so another big vote, and if you aren't friends with this guy on Facebook, I just called the senator this guy. If you're not friends with the senator on Facebook, you need to, because he's really, really good about talking about his votes and talking about the way, the different direction he wants to take some of his committees. And so it's Charles Schneider on Facebook. Look him up. Easy to find. I'm friends on Facebook. That's how we got him here. Very responsive to things. He gets back to the constituents in a really timely fashion, which we always appreciate. But one of the votes that you took, that you were proud to take, was exempting military pensions from Iowa income tax. Mm-hmm. So why do you think that's important? And were you surprised by some of the pushback that you saw from after you took that vote?
Yeah, good question. The reason why it's important is because we have a skills gap in Iowa. A lot of our employers have difficulty finding skilled workers. And we're going to have a lot of military personnel retiring from their military service over the next several years as we draw down the level of our forces nationally. Mm-hmm. And by 26 other states already, in one way or another, exempt military retirement pay from income tax, either because they don't have a state income tax or because they have that specific exemption. So adding that exemption to our toolkit helps make us more attractive to veterans in trying to find veterans who have skills that our Iowa employers need.
Now, this is a piece of the governor's home base program that in his condition of the state address a couple of weeks ago, he called the centerpiece of his 2014 legislative agenda. What are some of the other pieces of home base, and how do they all kind of tie in to bring veterans to Iowa?
Two of the other major pieces are, first of all, making sure that, right now, military personnel and their spouses and dependents get in-state tuition at our Regents universities, but they don't at our community colleges. So one of the other positions of this plan is to grant in-state tuition to community colleges for military personnel, their spouses, and their dependents.
Sure.
And the third, the third thing is talking to the different licensing groups and finding a way to give military personnel credit towards licensure for different professions.
Oh, hey, no, that's a very interesting idea as well. Now, some of the I talked to or mentioned some of the pushback, and there hasn't been. I mean, this is going to sail through. We both know it. It's the doing right by the veterans is never a fight anywhere in this state or usually around the country. I want to say, I don't want to go too far on the limb, but there has been some pushback to this pension idea, and I mentioned some of it during the break that I was seeing was military pensions don't. When we think of a pension, we think of a retired person, someone who's older, who's receiving some benefits from having worked an awfully long time. And military pensions don't have an age restriction, as I understand it. You can be discharged honorably and receive a military pension, or if you have ongoing health needs that you get after you're out of the military, these benefits can go on for an awfully long time and have relatively high dollar values over the course of a soldier's life or a veteran's life. Now, I'm not one to sit here and begrudge someone the military pension, absolutely not. But some of the comments that I've seen about exempting it from the Iowa income taxes, boy, that's a lot of revenue. That's a lot of revenue that the state's given up by exempting these benefits from these veterans. Now, we don't have a very big veteran population in Iowa relative to the rest of the country. But if we bring more folks in because of these tax benefits, how much could that potentially cost the state in the long term?
There is a fiscal note on that. The Legislative Services Agency Fiscal Division puts a note together. I don't remember the exact numbers off the top of my head, and I don't want to just throw a number out there and risk being wrong, but it would be easy for someone to find, and I'd be happy to send it to you.
Absolutely. You can email that to me, and I can follow up on social media, but where can folks who want to look it up right now find it?
I think if I'm trying to remember the number of the Senate bill, I think it was 308. Why don't I just put it up on my Facebook page or on my website tonight?
Hey, no, we'd certainly appreciate it because, like I said, I don't think anybody wants to take benefits away from veterans, but in an age where fiscal responsibility and fiscal planning is so important, it's an interesting concept to be floating that away. So
the feedback, if you don't mind,
go ahead.
The feedback I got, and you'll see it on my Facebook page too, but more of the feedback I got was that we should be doing this for all pension payments that people get. That's
interesting.
We ought to reduce income tax burdens for everybody. That's the feedback that I got. And
you threw a curveball when you mentioned a national or a state sales tax or consumption tax, because I am enamored with that particular idea. And most folks, they don't mind paying taxes, but that income tax can really bite.
Yeah.
And as a small business owner myself, I know that self-employment tax can really start to kind of add up if you're not careful. So what are some of the other pieces, if you've been able to take any interesting votes, or some of the bills that you've introduced that you're kind of proud of or want to push a little bit and give some play to, and then broad picture, what do you look for the next 2 years?
Sure. One bill that I've introduced recently would let cops teach driver's ed.
Interesting.
And right now, only licensed teachers can teach driver's ed. Well, a couple of one cop and one retired state trooper who live in my district came to me soon after I got elected and said, "Hey, we want to start this teaching school, this driving teaching school, but we can't teach, even though we know all the rules of the road." And we know them better than a lot of the people who teach driver's ed courses. We can't go out and teach this because it's against the law for us to do it. So I'm trying to advance a bill in the Senate, and I have gotten support from State Senator Steve Sodders from Marshalltown, who's a Democrat, to introduce something together, and hopefully we'll be able to get that through the Senate.
That seems like a pretty common sense piece of legislation. You sort of wonder why, and I suppose teaching is teaching, and that's sort of why, just how it's always been. One of those, it's been that way, and it's always been that way, so it's always going to be that way situations. But you got to wonder if there's a winter sports coach or an English teacher who likes to work during the summer that's going to have an issue with some competition. But you're right, you're absolutely right. I know that that the very few times that I've been pulled over for a traffic infraction, that officer definitely knew the law better than I did, and I've had to take some traffic tickets to court for other people, and I'm in the book. I'm looking it up like 5 minutes before to keep refresh my memory, and those guys know what they are. Those men and women know what they're talking about when they are being questioned by somebody who just read it 5 minutes before you ask them the question. So big picture, what is sort of your goal for this legislative session? Are you thinking about running 20? I know it's a long way away, 2016, but are you thinking about running for re-election? What's on the docket for you in the next 2 years?
Sure. I've already mentioned income tax reform.
Yep.
One other issue that I really think we need to take a look at is reforming our pension system as a whole. We have 4 different pensions in Iowa right now, and they're all underfunded to some degree. And I'm worried that some of the actuarial assumptions that our actuaries use to determine the unfunded liability actually are making that unfunded liability seem better than what it really is. So things like this is getting into the weeds, but the discount rate
in particular. We love the weeds here.
I'm worried the discount rate is too high. Our actuarial tables, may be old, and this is stuff I need to research more thoroughly, but we're using actuarial tables from 2000. I think there are more current tables. The impact of that is that if we're using old tables, we're underestimating the life expectancy of people. So that's also underestimating the amount of the unfunded liability.
Well, if you don't mind keeping me apprised of that, because I've got a dad who's a teacher for a long time here who moved to Minnesota, that would be very interested to hear about a pension, because I assume that that the IPERS pension will be involved in some of those calculations and some of the other things we've got going. Well, we're coming up on another break. We're going to talk a little bit about national politics here in the next segment, and we certainly are happy to have Senator Charles Schneider with us for the hour. And hurry back, because we will. Webcast1live.com.
Bertroche and Associates will provide you with a friendly, caring, and confidential place to find help for mental health concerns. We are ready for your call. We are proud to work with military personnel and their families. Our doctor, Dr. J. Patrick Bertroche, provides a full range of psychiatric services for children, adolescents, and adults in a forthright and informative manner while maintaining a casual, comfortable, and relaxed atmosphere. Our licensed mental health therapists provide individual counseling to children, adolescents, and adults, including couples and marital counseling. Visit our website at bertrocheandassociates.com for more information or call 515-334-9484. Our offices are located at 5525 Meredith Drive in Des Moines, just east of Skate North off Merle Hay Road. Isn't it time to talk to someone? Take care of yourself and your family. Contact Bertroche and Associates.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We're here with Senator Charles Schneider from District 22 that covers all of the business end of, well, I shouldn't say business end. Most of the fun end of the Des Moines that I know. I moved back to the Union Park neighborhood last week, And I'm sure going to miss being out in West Des Moines. I had a lot of fun out there. I played a lot of gigs out there. Got into a little bit of trouble out in West Des Moines. Nothing too serious or to tell my mom about if you're listening. But so we're talking about some of the goals that you have, fiscal responsibility, income tax reform. I imagine that you're pretty pleased with how the decent looking, at least the initial term results of the property tax reform that we had last session. That seems to be moving in the right direction for a lot of homeowners and I guess a few business owners. Although I don't. Business zoning that wasn't touched. If I'm correct,
it was actually, yeah.
Okay. So was it agricultural land that wasn't reformed, or
ag land? I believe was kept the same.
It was kept the same, and then great. So and those the initial numbers so far, you've got especially, and you've got a lot of the cities, a lot of the municipalities. I remember the mayor of Carlisle at the time was kind of the leader of the "we need this money" faction, and they're being mollified because there's been more than enough money to kind of backfill some of the losses from some of that revenue. So it looks like it's working well. That's so good, because I think that you were sort of in that mix talking about that stuff. But we've got the State of the Union address tonight, and I know that I'm probably keeping a lot of folks, if they're listening, or maybe in today's age, they can be watching on the iPad, listening to me, or coming, checking me out an hour from now on YouTube. But the State of the Union address tonight, and a lot of issues with the country, a lot of issues in Washington. You explicitly rejected a run for a seat to go to Washington as a fiscal conservative, but not just as a conservative person, just as an Iowan and as an American. What's the deal? What's going on with these parties in Washington D.C.?
What you've got, I think, are just two factions that have very different opinions and beliefs on the way the country needs to go, financially, fiscally, in terms of how we deliver health care to people in the United States. And there's probably blame to go around, to go all the way around. To me, it doesn't seem like this president has really done a good job of bringing Republicans into the discussion and the conversation as he's been developing his ideas. And as a result, you've got a lot of Republicans right now digging in their heels on certain issues because this is the only time they've had to say anything about them. They weren't involved in the creation of the product. They're not involved in the delivery of it right now. And there's really nothing they can do about it except dig in their heels and protest with the way you've seen Senator Cruz do. And,
sure.
The way you've seen the House vote, I don't know how many times now, to defund Obamacare.
It's been a lot. Now, I'm going to push back a little bit on that because I feel for, once again, just to make it clear, I'm not going to be the cheerleader for the administration. The administration can defend itself. I had a lot of problems with a lot of things they've done, but as far as the Republican opposition is concerned, what it seems to me, it's hard to have a credible opposition, or bring them into the process at all. And I would argue that their ideas were requested and just were sort of those requests were ignored early on. But it's hard to have a credible opposition when the opposition doesn't know kind of what it thinks in its own head. An example of that, and there's a myriad of examples that you hear from Democratic pundits all the time about the splits in the Republican Party and who's the leader and who has the soul and all this other stuff. But I think a very clear-cut example, folks, is tonight, and I sprung this on you during the break, and I apologize for that. But tonight there are not one, as is traditional, not two, as is recent tradition, but three responses to the State of the Union address that the president's giving right now. We got the Republican Party response. We've got the Tea Party Republican response, and that's been in the last two or three that he's done. And now we have Senator Rand Paul. Sorry, I don't want to belittle anybody, and I've never tried to do that. And so don't take my chuckle as derision, but it's just sometimes you just got to laugh about this stuff, and you kind of wonder what's going on with the national Republicans that they think that they need. I mean, the president hasn't been that effective, in my opinion. It's not like they're battling the ghost of LBJ here. Three responses. What do you think's up with that?
I really don't know. I didn't know until you told me that there were going to be 3 different responses. I've been busy, up at the Iowa Capitol focusing on that.
You're a working man. It's just I found it interesting.
Well, it is interesting. I think it does show, though, that say what you will, that there's infighting or there are different factions or whatever, but it shows there are different elements within the Republican Party and different groups, and that we're not appealing to just one narrow band of people.
Sure.
And I think it also goes back to the point of saying, well, this also happens really with any party that's out of power. When President Bush was in office, there was a lot of division within the Democratic Party because you don't have one national spokesman. And so you have a little bit within the Republican Party. You've got different factions trying to be the spokesperson or take the party in the direction that it wants to go.
I think that's a very fair point. And I kind of, Doc and I talked about this a little bit the last show, I think it was last week, talking a little bit about the media's role in this. And I kind of wonder, while I'm not going to get involved in the liberal conservative media debate with you tonight, that's beyond the purview of this show, but I do kind of wonder if some of the divisions are amplified in an unfair way, because you're right, the party out of power is kind of a mess for a little while, and the Republican Party nationally, whether you think that the ideas are good or whatever, lost a bunch of national elections in a row. I think 5 out of the last 6 or something, and for any party, that's a really clarifying moment for the soul or the direction that party thinks that it needs to go. I just fear that I see a lot of Republicans in the news doubling down on some of the things that kind of got them kicked out in the first place. And I wonder if that's going to be a good prescription going forward. Can you speak to that? Or maybe I'm all wet on this topic. I don't know.
No, I'm not sure I exactly understand the question when you talk about people who are kicked out of the party.
No. Losing out of office.
Oh, I see.
Losing elections. I'm sorry. Losing no one's been. I don't think anybody's been kicked out of the Republican Party since was it not George Will, but kicked all the guys out in the 60s. Said they're not really conservatives anymore. But no, that's not what I meant. I meant losing elections. So you see guys like Todd Aiken, for example, he was a longtime congressperson and lost a very winnable Senate race because he said some impolitic things. And I wonder if the spotlight and the amplification of the new forms of media that we have don't shine a bright spotlight, and how do we deal with that? I know that you are not a and this is not meant as a dig, but you're not a headline grabber yourself. You don't see Schneider denounces Obamacare plastered all over the Des Moines Register the way that you see like a Steve King, for example. And so I wonder, and that could be your temperament, that could be your legislative style, that could be a host of different things that we don't have time to talk about. But I wonder, are we being done a disservice by those kind of banner headlines? Are the voters being confused by, because I've listened to Steve King give speeches in Iowa, very reasonable, rational sort of guy. I hear him say things nationally in front of the national cameras, and he sounds like a person I've never heard before. Is it a complete 180? Who is this guy over here? Are we being led astray, or are politicians taking advantage of those outlets to say some weirder things?
Well, politicians on both sides of the aisle can say some really stupid things, and whether that's done and highlighted on one media outlet or several media outlets in various different types of media, a stupid thing to say is a stupid thing to say, and it's going to carry its own repercussions with people when they hear it. Now, of course, the media tries a lot of times what they not the only thing they care about reporting the news. But generally speaking, but they also care about advertising revenue, because that's what they use to pay themselves with. And if you want to get eyeballs on your social media or on your television, then you put things out there that are going to get people's attention.
That's right.
So a lot of times I think media will take some of the controversial things and either put them out there out of context or play them over and over again to draw viewers to look better for companies they're trying to solicit ads from. But again, I don't mistake that statement by me as excusing any stupid comments that are made by anyone, Republicans included.
Sure, and that's a very good point. And we're going to take another quick short break here. And when we come back, we're going to have dogs on roller skates and me saying all kinds of crazy things because we need more viewers, folks. And as the senator pointed out, maybe that's a way to get more butts in the seats. Just kidding. I'm speaking for myself, not for him. But we'll be back right after this quick break. Just a few more minutes with Senator Charles Snyder from District 22. This is Doc and Lefty. We're here every Tuesday, 6:30 to 7:30. Check out our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
All across America, there are countless numbers of people struggling with addiction and other life-controlling issues. Probably someone you know and love. There is a way out. There is hope. Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida, has a unique approach to substance abuse treatment. Call now and ask about our Guaranteed Success program or log on to transformationstreatment.com. Transformations. Change your life. Change your relationships. Transform your world.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast 1 Live.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. And we were just kind of during the break, we were commenting back and forth. Aside from the fact that I was doing a fantastic job, just kidding. We're talking a little bit about the when we're talking about the divisions. We're talking a little about the factionalism and how it's sort of pervading every area of culture. That media consumption of media is now a niche industry almost. There are none of these, or no more of these big immense cultural things that just wrap everybody up. It's 5 million people here, 10 million people here, and it's a phenomenon, and that never used to be the case. Do you see some of that entering into our politics, and is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? The factionalism. I should probably set that up a little better. I apologize for that. I'm seeing everyone gets what they want, and we are seeing a marketplace where if I don't like this particular brand of whatever, or this TV show, or this podcast about this thing, I can move slightly to my left or my right and find the exact thing that I want. Whereas in the past, because we didn't have social media, we didn't have the internet the way that it is, that wasn't possible. That larger swaths, that music was more general, that politics were more general, let's say, and that's kind of my thesis, is that some of this factionalism that we're seeing in pop culture or in media consumption is entering into our politics. Maybe that's feeding some of these either real or imagined divisions. What do you think about that? Yeah,
I think that's true. The electorate can really decide on their own what viewpoint they want to watch and or listen to, and a lot of times it's a viewpoint that reinforces their own beliefs.
Sure.
Which is their which probably does lead to some of the different factionalism we see in politics too, because a person who's advocating for a certain issue, be it on the right or the left, knows which media outlet they can go to talk about their pet issue.
Well, and what's interesting about that point that you make is I kind of wonder if it keeps going the way that it's going, and it seems to be the split seems to be deeper, or at least more fundamental on the Republican side at this point. That's not to say it won't happen with the Democrats. Say the Republicans sweep everything in 2016 and have unified government for probably 2 years. That seems to be how it's going to go now. But say the Republicans take control in 2016 of everything, you're going to see the Democratic Party in disarray, and some of these same sorts of things happen on the Democratic side. But I kind of wonder if these different cracks kind of form into a larger split, will we see a viable third party, or will we see a viable third and fourth? Could we be seeing the balkanization of American politics in such a way that we haven't seen probably since the Civil War? I don't want to be too melodramatic about it, but that was the in history the biggest obvious split in American politics. And it just seems that we're kind of going not in another war direction, but man, we're getting factions all over the place. I don't know what you think about that, but
yeah, as far as a third party popping up,
yeah.
I just have a hard time seeing
really?
a third party.
They failed so many times. It's hard to think about it.
Yeah, there's been the Republican Party and the Democrat Party in place since the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
You know, prior to that, you had Whigs and Federalists and Democratic Republicans, and the nation was kind of finding its way around what to coalesce around, and we've just had these two parties in place for so long. That doesn't mean it's a good thing. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's not, but for a third party to get going and sustain itself and be viable, it's just a really hard thing to do. So you got to get on the ballot in every state, in every election. You've got to find credible candidates in multiple seats to continue to get enough people from your party to go to the polls and keep your party on the ballots in some states. It's just a tall task.
I think that you're right to bring up the technicalities, because the technicalities and the practicalities of running a campaign are always important. You always have to have those. I just wonder if it's not impossible for all of this dissatisfaction. I mean, Democrats and Republicans are running at the lowest of the low at this point. No one likes to admit what party they are, especially in Iowa. Now, Iowa, we tend to, it feels like we like both, because we like both kind of push and pull, but a lot of independents in Iowa. I know there's a lot of independents in your district in particular. There's a lot of independents all over.
Independents outnumber. There are more independents than registered Republicans or registered Democrats in Iowa.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, and I think that trend is going to continue. I agree with you. I don't think we're going to see a third party really do much of anything significant. I don't know, maybe in both of our lifetimes, but man, it is interesting to think about, and you can't ignore that the dissatisfaction with the current political system is real, that it is deep, and that until our elected leaders figure out how to respond to that, these questions are going to keep popping up from guys like me. Mm-hmm. Now, that is not to say that you are a part of the problem. I think that you're part of the solution. Senator, so glad to have you on. I had a really great this is a really great conversation for me.
Me too.
I hope that you enjoyed it. Folks, check out his website,
SchneiderForIowaSenate.com.
SchneiderForIowaSenate.com. Hit him up on Facebook. Seriously, this is a gentleman who is more than willing to engage with the constituents, which is more than you can say for our national leaders, more than you can say for a lot of leaders here in the state. Really did appreciate you having you on, and we'll be back next week. Hopefully Doc is back from whatever business that he had to take care of that kept him away from the show. We'll be talking State of the Union. I'm sure he and I will have a fight about the Iran negotiations. I know that seems to be our big thing at this point, but thanks for listening. Check us out on YouTube in about an hour, 2 hours, and we will catch you next week, 6:30 to 7:30, Doc and Lefty here on webcast1live.com. Cheers, everybody.
Hi, I'm Representative Tom Shaw, and I love these guys. Both of them.
Love these guys. Get over here. Love both of them.